This is episode number 126, featuring the amazing artist Don Whitelaw.
This is the PleinAir podcast with Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of PleinAir magazine. In the PleinAir podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called PleinAir, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plain air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Eric Rhodes.
Well, thank you, Jim Kipping, and welcome everybody to the PleinAir podcast. My name is Eric, and I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to talk to an amazing woman who is a true master artist, a master plein air painter, as well as a top figure and portrait painter. It's going to be a lot of fun, interesting. She's got some great things to say. Speaking of masters, the amazing Scott Christensen is going to be highlighted at the 2020 Plein Air Convention in Colorado, along with a lot of others. I know we've got Kwang Ho, and I can't mention them all right now, and we're not even done yet, but you want to see these people. Scott Christensen is going to be on the main stage, plus he's doing a pre-convention workshop. Now, my advice to you, this is a rarity, and to get a couple of days with Scott Christensen, there's already a run on this thing, and you want to get your tickets to the convention first and then to the workshop, because at some point we're going to have to cut off how many people can be in there. Also, if you're a watercolor fan, the amazing Thomas Schaller is going to be doing a pre-convention watercolor workshop. Also, Joe Zabukvich is coming back to the convention, so it's going to be a wild lineup. We're already, get this, with a year to go, 75% sold out. You heard me right, 75% sold out with a year to go. So the amazing scenery, the low cost of the area, the incredible lineup of people, this is going to be the mother of all plein air conventions. I think you're going to want to be there. I don't know how long these seats will last, quite frankly. I think you want to get them. And I also know the hotel is going to sell out soon, so you're going to want to get those too. But don't book the hotel without booking your convention. Anyway, this is pretty exciting. I also want to mention something else. One of the best ways to learn to be a better painter and a better plein air painter is to understand how to draw and paint the human figure. So far, over 80 people who are going to or have signed up for the plein air convention are also going to the figurative art convention and expo. This is the other thing we do. It's in November in Williamsburg, Virginia. We're going to have a plein air day or plein air morning where we got all the people in the colonial Williamsburg costumes, Revolutionary War costumes, beautiful bright red colors, horses, buggies, old buildings. It's going to be an incredible thing. And then we're holding the FACE conference there. And you can learn more about that at figurativeartconvention.com. It's really a great event. And I should also mention that we're right on the edge of doing the Adirondack event. It's coming up in June. The Publishers Invitational starts June 8th. This year we end before Father's Day, so you can be home before Father's Day. And we're kind of pushing the limits in terms of how many more people we can get in. We might be able to get 5 or 6 more. So if you're like a last-minute person, you want to just go ahead and get in, I'd pick up the phone and call the office at 561-655-8778, or just go to publishersinvitational.com. Coming up after the interview, I'm going to answer some art marketing questions in the Marketing Minute. But first, I love this person. Don Whitelaw, what a great artist. You're going to enjoy this. Don Whitelaw, welcome to the Plein Air podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for including me.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you on. You are a legend.
Does that mean I'm old?
Well, I'm not going to go down that path.
It's quite all right. I'll own that gladly.
Well, you have, for the people who may or may not know you, you have quite a legacy in the Tennessee, Nashville area, but also nationally. And you're well known as both a landscape and a portrait painter. Did I describe that properly?
Yes, thank you.
I have one of my jewels in my collection is a beautiful landscape that you did. I think from one of our events, the Adirondacks or something, perhaps.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you're a fabulous landscape painter. You when did this all start for you? Let's kind of go backwards and go into the journey. How did this interest in art happen, Dawn?
Well, I came to the party late as a painter. I had been interested in graphic design out of college and pursued that. And about age 35, I actually saw a painting in a museum, and it was what I knew. It's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Do you remember what that painting was?
Oh, of course I do. Cecilia Bowes, The Man with the Cat.
Oh, my.
Her uncle, Henry Drinker, he's in a white suit by a window with a cat in his lap. And I grew up in a rural area, not having been to museums much or at all, and I just didn't know a painting could look like that. And it literally stopped me in my tracks.
Where was the museum?
And it was in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
It's the American Wing. And I got to visit it again about a year ago, and I felt the same way.
Really, that was going to be my next question, is did it have the same kind of impact the second time around?
Well, I think that it even had more impact because I had more understanding of the genius of it all. When I first saw it, it was from such a place of real ignorance, but I just didn't know paint could look like that. I just had no idea.
And from a professional perspective now, looking at it the second time around and having lots of experience, was there anything that you discovered in it that you had not? Of course, when you first saw it, you didn't have any experience, but anything you discovered in it that kind of informs your work today?
Absolutely. All the things that I have been currently chewing on in my studio, it just edges and shape and value and color and texture. Everything was right there, just like a feast.
So you did this graphic design thing. You discovered Celia Bow, and then what happened then?
Well, the next major step was getting myself into the workshop system. I did not have the advantage of art school, so I'm totally a product of the workshop system. And one of the first workshops I took was with Everett Raymond Kinsler, a New York painter, and subsequently I guess I took probably 15 or 20 workshops with him. And so he has been a great mentor to me.
You know, I should get Kinsler on the podcast someday. I hadn't really thought to, because he doesn't really focus on landscape painting, although I've seen some work that he's done that is fabulous. But his stories are the best stories I've ever heard. He's like a walking art history book.
Oh, he is unbelievable. Well, so he is the reason I'm painting landscape at all, because it was not on my radar. And I just, after the first workshop, I just was so sure that my path as a portrait painter was set. And I said, just tell me what I can do to be a better portrait painter. And he said, go out and paint landscape.
Really?
And yeah, and I not only, that's not what I expected, I really just blew it off. I didn't do it for years. And
shame on you.
Well, it's just like, why? This is before the PleinAir movement. There was no cute gear. There was nobody that I knew was out painting with the bugs in the wind and the changing light. And, of course, at that time I was teaching at a university part-time, and one promising student said to me one day, well, I really want to get better. What can I do? And before I knew, you know what came out of my mouth? Get out and paint landscape from life. And she looked at me and she said, okay. She said, I don't have a car. Will you take me? And that's how I got out.
Really?
Yes.
It's a great story. So
Yes.
you kind of were bluffing your way through that.
Oh, yeah, and I couldn't even believe when I was saying it that that's what I was saying, because I had not done it at that point and really had no intention. And after that summer of doing really bad little plein air sketches, I was totally hooked. Just totally. It changed everything about how I approached the canvas and paint. I'm so grateful for that moment. I can't even tell you.
So, Dawn, how did it impact, because you were focusing on portraiture or figurative work. How did it impact that work?
It made me get the effect quickly, and that's one thing that Mr. Kinsler would talk about is to make a quick assessment of your subject and get the pertinent information down quickly, get their character. And so with plein air painting, of course, as you know, everything's changing, and so you are called to this intense focus, and focusing on not everything, but just the pertinent things. And my portrait work immediately began to get better.
Because you were able to be more responsive more rapidly?
Yes.
Yeah.
It built, and not only that, it built confidence in mixing a color and a value quickly. It made me more attentive about the drawing and get that more accurately quickly. It just improved everything.
You know, it's interesting how one thing informs the other.
It is.
I was talking to somebody in my office a couple of days ago, and we realized that we have about 85 people who attended the plein air convention who have signed up for our figurative art convention. And,
Terrific.
And I was talking with another painter just earlier today, and he was talking about if you want to be a really good plein air painter, go study figure drawing.
Exactly.
And so one informs the other, but they're not intuitive.
That is just perfect that one informs the other, because I find that to be true.
So how much landscape painting do you still do? Because I know you love and focus a lot on the portrait.
You know, it's the end of the year when I sort of look back at how I spent my time. I find that I'm going to group landscape in with other paintings for galleries. That time is about 1/3. The portrait painting is about 1/3, and the teaching is about 1/3. And it just seems to work out that way most every year. And I love that mix.
Yeah. And do you like to travel and paint, or do you pretty much paint around your local area?
I like to be somewhere different and paint, and I like to paint in my local area. You know, I get a little tired of the travel, but I have some trips scheduled this year, and I'm looking forward to being out of town and really focusing on just painting out for a few days.
Yeah, well, it's one of the great gifts of plein air painting is the ability to be outdoors and to travel to different locations. And certainly we all can find ample subject matter wherever we live, even if we're painting like Joe Paquette might do, painting industrial sites or dumpsters.
Yes.
But it's nice to kind of look forward to going and painting someplace romantically beautiful or stunning landscapes or interesting buildings or whatever.
It is, and I see things I want to paint everywhere, and it's just nice to go to an area and sort of get absorbed in that particular landscape. You know what's happening with the light. The trees are different than they are into the sea, and just really educate yourself about a region. So,
what I'd like to do is to touch on the exploration of plein air painting. What we as painters should be considering. You are clearly viewed as a top master painter today. You have kind of graduated to a much higher level because of the amount of time and experience and notoriety that you've gained. And there are not very many people who make it there. And so I'd like to have you kind of help us figure out, how do we get there? What should our journey be like? What is this exploration of plein air painting?
Well, I think it's probably different different for everybody. Some people are coming to it having been to art school. Others, like myself, come to it through the workshop system. And then I have friends that haven't painted anything at all, and now they're out plein air painting. So I think the main thing I could say is just get out there and experience it. It's just the greatest teacher. I think it was Burge Harrison who said that most of the unsolved issues in art can be solved in the open air, and I just believe it calls you to task, and it takes you wherever you are and makes you better.
So I'm kind of curious about this. We're running into a lot of people who have discovered plein air painting because they stumbled into the podcast and they're going out and doing it. I'll bet there were hundreds at the plein air convention who had discovered it because of the podcast, or because of the Sunday coffee thing that I do, and I think that what's curious about that is whether or not that's the starting point. So, when I remember learning to paint, it's a struggle trying to figure out how to make colors and so on. Is it better for somebody to learn how to paint indoors before they ever go outdoors and struggle with the extra effort of easels outdoors and blowing wind and changing light, or do you think they should just go all in and go outdoors from the beginning?
Well, I think if they want to go outdoors and paint, that's what they should do. I think the thing I'm very passionate about is that a beginning painter should work from life, whether that's indoors or outdoors, might be their choice or just their circumstances. But I don't think there would be much advantage of being inside first unless you just gain some confidence. But I'm telling you, every time I painted out this morning, and it was not like I just casually strolled up and I was going to do this painting. It's just, it's like, well, I hope I can make this work. What can I learn here? And so I don't know that you would ever feel prepared. I guess I'm more in the camp of just let's get out there and experience it.
So you paint from time to time at various events where you're juried in and you're painting essentially as almost as a performance art, in the sense that maybe sometimes people are watching you in a quick draw environment, but also you're trying to produce, you're under pressure. Let's say you're at an event for a week and you're trying to produce 5, 6, 8, 10 paintings that you can put into the show so the show is successful and you can make some money on that. How does that change your behavior as a painter? I mean, do you find that having that pressure is helpful? Is it hurtful? Because, sometimes when I'm out painting, I'm just trying to get a study for a studio piece.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the energy and pressure of the events. It just brings something else to the table, and I feel like they're a great experience. I don't do that many. In the past, I've done a couple of years, so I'm not in the circuit, but it really helps me to be under that pressure and under the pressure to produce and be a good ambassador for plein air as well at the same time. And I like that, but it's not my complete story of being a plein air painter. I guess I'm more out there as a student and gathering ideas for paintings and exploring more than production. But I think that balance is really good.
Well, and the nice thing about a study is it kind of takes the pressure off. In the sense that, like you say, you're experimenting, you're trying things, you're looking for something that might lead you down a path for a bigger studio painter or something. So that there's kind of both. But do you ever get intimidated? For instance, if you were setting up next to someone that you respected highly, I don't know who it would be, Kinsler or somebody else.
I give you a long list.
Do you find that you're trying harder? You're intimidated? What's that like?
No, I enjoy that because most everybody's going to be looking at them, and I will be looking at them as well. No, I just I think I put the pressure on myself, depending on what the purpose for that plein air painting is. Is it production? Is it performance? Is it gathering information? It could be any of those things. I feel like that I'm never casual about it. I really approach it with some intent. But a counselor told me one time, if you ever have an opportunity to hang your painting next to the painting of a really great painter, do it because they'll make your painting look better.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
believe that's true.
Huh. So what other wonderful tidbits of information did you learn from Kinsler?
Oh, this is too short a podcast for this. So much of who I am as a painter, even though stylistically in so many ways we're different, have come from him. One main thing I have from him is work ethic. And I know that at 92 plus, he's in his studio, not taking anything for granted. He's doing his homework. He's working hard, and that inspires me to do the same.
Yeah, he never rests on his laurels, does he? He's always trying to push the limits. He's always prepared.
Yes.
And you're right. And he puts in long days.
Yes, and so passionate about it. And so, it's the technical information that I got from him was great, but I think that he taught me how to see as much as anything, and I think that is that and just his drive and passion are probably the most important things.
Now, you're teaching now. You do a lot of teaching. You said 1/3 of your time is teaching. What are you teaching? Say that again?
Or preparing to teach.
Yeah. So what are you teaching? Are you teaching portraiture, landscape, figure, all of the above?
All of the above. Yeah, I think over the years, and I basically teach in a workshop settings, that I have found I get more done if that workshop is very focused on one small, it could be just on drawing or some small area of painting, and I enjoy that. I have found that I like what I can get done with a smaller group in a workshop, so I've gravitated to smaller groups. But as far as subject matter, I think it runs the course. Anything that you could name, probably I have students that come to a workshop and we work on that.
So how many students will you have in a typical workshop?
I really, I like 12. Sometimes it's a few less for some of the classes, and then a few more. When I taught on the college level, I'm real comfortable with 18 or 20 people, but I had them for a whole semester or a whole year. But for a 3, 4, 5 day class, I think I really get good work done with a smaller group. So that's kind of been the direction I've been for the last few years.
And I hear from a lot of painters who tell me that a lot of people come to workshops, but they don't listen to the instructor. They just kind of are there to be a part of the experience. Do you ever experience any of that? I can't say that I have. That's because you're gonna whip them into shape. You're gonna say, "You get in there and you get that done."
Well, let me just say this. I taught college students for 35 years, and I learned how to teach people, I think, during that time. And so I have my ways to get that done during a class. So, and I really, in my opinion, they're not there to learn to paint like me. They're there for me to help them paint like them. And I'm looking for what's their vision for their painting voice to be. And so I learned how to do that all those years working with the college students.
Well, I think that's a really important observation, because there's a tendency, if we admire someone, the tendency is we want to paint like them, but there really should not be another Don Whitelaw or another Joe McGurl or another C.W. Mundy. We should each kind of find our own voice. How do you get beyond someone trying to be you, instead help them find their own palette, their own voice, their own feeling?
I really haven't found that to be a big problem. I just haven't. That may be a problem in some workshops, but I don't believe it's one in mine. The whole thing is just geared to be about them, and I think they feel that and understand that and appreciate it.
Yeah. So how do we, as individual painters, you always hear people say, you'll find your voice or your voice will find you. Is this something that is intentional, or is it just something that you kind of develop a look and a style just because you've done it so much and you've kind of got your own unique feel?
Well, I think it happens both ways. I think it finds you, but I think there are things you can do to help that journey along. When you can begin to clarify what your intent for the painting is, what am I interested in here and getting down on this canvas, and then whose work out there can I look at historically or among contemporary painters that seem to be doing that, and how do they handle these things, and how can I incorporate that? It's a lot of focus on intent, I'd say, helps lead you to finding a personal style.
So you have been very much a leader you live in Nashville, and you've been very much a leader in developing, I don't know if you started them, but you certainly have played a major role in getting a community of painters together. I know there's the Chestnut Group, which has become world renowned, and there may be other groups that. Can you talk to me about these organizations that you helped give birth to, and then also the importance of community?
Community is, I think, so important for sustenance and growth, and we are so fortunate in the area where I live to have this huge community. There are probably 200 members in the Chestnut Group, PleinAir Group, that paints to benefit land trust, like the Cumberland River Compact, and it's this wonderful coming together of professional artists and people who are out there painting for the first time for a common cause, and I love being a part of that group. It's so exciting to go out with people who've not been out to paint before, and to see their excitement and exhilaration over it all. It excites me.
Well, I hear so many stories from various group organizers that they have trouble getting people to come out consistently, or perhaps, they start something and then nobody shows up. And there's got to be kind of a key to making it all work. Have you discovered any ideas or secrets to making sure that these groups continue to be successful?
Well, I think it's for the Chestnut Group, it's been personal relationships. And for a professional painter to take a first-timer kind of under their wing and encourage them and let them know that we're out there struggling too, and it's not easy, but so beneficial. I think it's the personal relationships that has kept that organization going and growing.
Well, and I would also think that if you've got those personal relationships going, then your personal development as a painter, you're growing, and that should probably have a big impact as well.
Oh, I think you're exactly right. I remember in the early years, the paintings in the Chestnut show, they would kind of all look alike, the same kind of composition, kind of a Tennessee barn in the middle of a canvas with a blue sky and a green field. And now the show is so eclectic and stylistically and subject matter, and it's just growth of the members.
Makes a lot of sense. And how do you make sure that your own artwork doesn't become the same? Are you always pushing yourself? How do you push yourself? Are you happy with where you are? Are you always trying to grow to another level? What's that look like for you?
I think what I like the best is the journey and the growth. I'm much more enamored by that, excited by, something new I'm trying, and this seems to be working better. I'm more in tune with that process probably than the product. And today there's so many wonderful painters out there doing work, and the work is accessible. You can see what people are doing. When I first started painting, the only way I could see work would be go to a museum or buy a book. And now it's just at my fingertips. And I talk to young people that are doing incredible work, and it just makes me very excited about what I'm doing, and I'll just try to raise the bar in my work constantly.
What I find fascinating is we recently wrapped up the PleinAir convention in San Francisco, and we were out by the Golden Gate Bridge at Crissy Field, and I set up and did a quick painting, but I wanted to walk around and talk to people, and I was just blown away by you got close to 800-900 people standing out there, and the subject matter is all about the same. Some people would face a different direction and so on, but most were kind of painting the bridge, and yet you did not see two compositions that looked alike. Everybody had a completely different approach, and it's a great learning experience because you're thinking, I would have never thought of that, and what a great idea that was.
That's exactly right. And I mean, just when in history has that happened before now? To have 800 or 900 people out there plein air painting, it's just so exciting and so good for all of us that paint that's going on.
Tell me your thoughts on this movement. Jean Stern from the Irvine Museum says that this is the largest art movement in the history of art in terms of the number of quality painters who are participating in this movement. There's never been anything like it.
Well, I think he's exactly right, and I think it's wonderful that people can enjoy it who are not full-time professionals yet, maybe, but just people can get out there for the enjoyment and share the experience. I just think it's a remarkable thing.
Well, it's certainly fun to watch. It's really neat because you and I have been doing this long enough now. We watch itty bitty little baby painters who are now having major exhibitions and are considered master painters. And you've had a hand in a lot of pretty prominent painters. I'm sure you'd get in trouble if you started mentioning names, but I know who certainly some of them are. And you have really bred a wonderful lot of professionals at the highest quality. And I think to your testament, the training that you've been giving them and the coaching and just being there for them has really made a huge impact nationally, not just locally.
Thank you. It's certainly made an impact on my life. So, when all is said and done, I love painting, but I feel that my best work on this earth will have been the people I've been able to help along this path who've really can attain some greatness. It's been a great joy for me to be associated with them and to see their growth and see them teaching. It's like I say, it's my best work.
It's taken me a lot of years to understand how important that is. Because I think when we're younger, it's all about me, and at least it was for me. And it's now the best work. I hear other people say this, and you've just kind of said this too, is that the very best thing that you find yourself doing is when you're helping other people and you're helping them, whether it's helping them in any way or whether it's helping them with painting or otherwise. It's that, like, there's a whole art to that in terms of really, that's where the richness of life, I think, comes from, is just devoting yourself to other people.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and it's I'm doing it because I have opportunity to, but it also, just the joy it brings me is immeasurable. It just really is.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Dawn, and because we always like to get some painting tips for people, and it's kind of a difficult environment because it's all verbal. You're not able to show anybody anything. But talk to me about some things that maybe you suggest, or tips that maybe are not the same ones that we're hearing from other people. What are your best ideas?
One thing that I have been doing probably for about a year and a half that has been a great tip for me is I've been putting aside my reference material. If it's a photograph or if I'm painting from life, I turn away from it for the finishing. And it has just unlocked a different level of painting for me, because as long as I'm looking at my reference and I'm doing this comparison, it's like I am just in this place of comparison. Once I turn that aside, something within me emotionally, in my memory, in my heart and soul comes out, and I connect with that canvas in a different way, and I start to feel things and understand things that I wouldn't get to with a reference in front of me. So that's been sort of a big turning point for me, and it sounds scary.
It is scary.
You've got a commission portrait, and instead of you're going to go for a final sitting and you're working from the photographs, and you think the smart thing would be to just study that photograph. And for me, it's been to put that photograph aside and remember.
Well, I can see that in landscape painting because, the reality is if it's a little off, nobody's going to know the difference. But in a portrait, you've got to get that likeness down. So is this all about memory training?
Well, I think it certainly has made my visual memory better. But in the photograph is telling me 1,000 things. My memory tells me the things that make that person look like them.
Yeah.
It goes back to what Mr. Kinster used to say, find a character. What is the particular character of this person? And I find I can get to that easier through my head than through the photographic reference. And even when they're in front of me, I look at them differently. I'm not looking for, some tiny form. I'm looking for the big ideas. And it's for me personally, it's been a turning point.
Well, I think I'm going to try that. I was reading a book about Ives Gammell, who was the great portrait and figure painter out of the Boston School, and he was also a plein air painter. And he, in the book, I was reading the book that Alan Banks just wrote about his notes to students. And then I read that one, and then there's another one that somebody else did. Who, forgive me, I'll forget their name. But one of the things Gamble said is that you should spend 15 minutes every day on memory training.
Oh, I believe that. And, our minds are so incredible. They respond to training even later in life in a way that I just didn't think was possible. My visual memory is so much better now than it was last year because I've been exercising it. I've actually been relying on it some, and it comes up to the task.
Do you ever have the temptation, let's say you're outdoor plein air painting and you've turned away from your subject to finish the painting, do you ever sneak a peek?
If I need to refer to it, to get one bit of information, yeah, but by that time, probably the lights changed. Many things could have changed. And I find that my remembrance of how everything felt when I began the painting is probably more valuable than some particular bit of information.
Okay. So let's go.
Try it.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it this weekend. So next tip, what's the next thing?
Well, this is nothing new or original, but I think to work from life as much as possible is just a good tip in general to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything else, and any other ideas that you want to share that might be helpful to people?
They're just too many. Let's see. I think the last one I would like to share is just to don't lose sight of the joy you find in painting. I think for most of us, the reason we started to paint is because it was joyful, and just don't lose sight of that. In my studio, I have a drawing that I purchased for $1 from a 5-year-old, and I look at it, and it is so joyful. And when I get just stuck and frustrated, I look up at that little drawing and think, okay, now this is supposed to be fun. Let's find that joy again. And it's got me through some bad times.
So in terms of what you're finding that you have to deal with students when you're teaching, are you finding there are certain things that just absolutely have to be overcome that perhaps you have a unique way of approaching?
That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly the answer, I'm afraid. I think my answers for each student are so specific. I don't have many general ideas on that. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I was just curious about that. Now, all of us have some specific times in our lives when something has happened when we've been out painting. Anything come to mind for you, an experience or someone that you met or something that occurred while you were out painting?
Well, I just think instead of one instance, I'm going to give you one area of my life. So many of my dear friends are people that I've painted out with. And I just, those friendships and relationships mean so much to me in my life other than painting, as well as my painting life. And I don't know how I could have come in contact with this wonderful group other than painting out with them.
Yeah. Well, I get that totally. You know, I don't remember where you and I first met. Was it in the Adirondacks? We knew about each other.
Yes, probably, and that was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. It's just that time. It can just be about the paint, and you don't have to worry about anything else. It was just joyful, and I met so many people there that I'd heard of previously and hadn't met, and people I'd not heard of that I'm now friends with. It was a wonderful experience. Well,
and that's where I was going to go with that. Is that I have made so many good friends, and lifelong friends. Just by attending. I'm putting them on it, but by attending this event and going out and painting with somebody, and you stand next to a few people every day for a few days painting. You really get to know them, and then you're with them at lunch and dinner And interestingly enough, I'll bet we've discovered 30 or 50 painters over the years that we've ended up featuring in the magazines because of it as well. So it's been good, it's been good for their careers. It's been good for us. It's been, it's kind of a win-win thing. Well, I was just kind of curious about that. Well, in terms of favorite places outside of the Tennessee area, do you have like places that you dream of going painting or places that you want to go back to?
Well, I'm in one of them right now. Florida Panhandle is just a painter's paradise. There's just so much here to paint. A kind of an unexpected place I love to paint is in Wisconsin, up around Door County. I find that I go there a couple of times a year on my own when I can and paint. I just connect with the imagery up there for some reason. But the truth is, driving to either one of these places or anywhere else, I'll see a million things that I want to stop and play. It's good stuff is everywhere.
And any places in Europe?
I have been fortunate to paint in Europe a good bit and love it, but I don't love it more than I love Wisconsin.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. And at the PleinAir convention, I had not painted in the Monterey area till I came out there for that event, and it was just bigger than life and unlike anything I've experienced. And so given the chance to go to Europe or back to Monterey, I might go to Monterey.
Huh. Well, I kind of feel the same way. So you put your students through this thing you call grocery bag sketches. Is that the right term?
Oh, they have named it. It's what I'm doing. And I just have to tell you, this has been another turning point that I've been, as a matter of fact, I did 2 this morning. Small little color sketches on a brown paper sketchbook. They call it grocery bag because that's what it looks like. And it has, it's so exciting because then I take that small sketch and maybe a little drawing I do and do large studio pieces just from that without a photograph. And it has just kind of made me turn another corner. So I'm obsessed with these little grocery bag sketches.
So
I have a few students doing them, but
are they
I'm mainly the one.
Are they
them.
paintings? Or are you sketching with paint? Are you sketching with colored pencil or what?
Sketching with oil paint. And this came to me by way of my friend Pam Paget, who was taking a Scott Christensen workshop. He was doing that. She came and told me about it. And I thought, well, I'm going to give that a try. And it's just, I've always done thumbnail sketches in black and white to get my design. But this little thing of doing them with the color, and I've already got my oil paint just sitting there, has unlocked a lot of painting ideas for me.
Really? Well,
Yes.
Christensen is going to be the pre-convention workshop at the PleinAir convention in Colorado this year. Or next year in 2020. So that's a rarity. It's probably going to sell out fast, I'm guessing. But
I think it will.
Yeah, huge rarity. Maybe we'll get Scott to do something on grocery bags.
Well, he doesn't even know that I've stolen this idea from him and been using it. It just has. It's the color sketches, and because I'm doing them with the same paint, I'm going to do the painting. I don't have that jump from, say, gouache to back into oil. And it's been so much fun.
So is it something about the mid-tone, the brown mid-tone, that makes it come alive? What is it that
Yes.
And so if you were going to do the equivalent thing on your canvas, would you mid-tone brown?
Yeah, well, for a while I was so kind of nuts about this. I was trying to tone my canvas just the same color as the brown paper bag, and I thought, well, this is silly, you just get over it. I do like to work on a mid-tone canvas, but it's the brown paper seems unprecious. And it's just, I'll take 30 minutes and try this idea out. And I'm not risking time or materials. And it kind of unlocks some fearlessness in me that I needed.
Well, and I guess it's also helping you work out your composition and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts or tips on design?
Do it.
Well, okay. How?
That's a silly answer. No, I actually do. I find that if I have a clear intent for the painting, that I base my design on that. Like I want what I'm mainly interested in. What I painted this morning was boats with big clouds over. I was mainly interested in the clouds, and the boats were, oh, by the way, there are boats here. So that informed my composition. that the boats did not take up a lot of room and the clouds took up a lot of room.
All right.
That's very simplistic, but that's, I think, how I like to design.
So some painters will tell me that they save the best for last, and some painters will tell me, no, the thing that excites them most, they get that done first. Do you have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I would probably be in the latter camp. I was just taught by Mr. Kinsler to get that effect, to get the effect quickly. Show me in the first few minutes what this painting is about, what caught your eye, what was interesting to you. Get that down. If people want to come at it the other way, I have no quarrel with them. It just suits my personality. I think better to go for the most important thing first.
Well, you also have your highest amount of energy in the beginning, and so it seems like the highest amount of energy devoted to the thing that you most want to speak about makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's interesting. I've watched Jeremy Lipking paint portraits many times, and Jeremy always, where most people will kind of sketch in the head and the skeletal structure, Jeremy just starts with the eyes and then works his way out.
Yes, and I see people do that, and I'm kind of amazed, but I really know myself and my temperament that that's not going to be the best path for me.
Yeah.
I have to start a different way.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got their own path, and it doesn't really matter how you get there, does it?
It does not, just as long as it's fun.
So any final words of wisdom to the people out there who might be listening in terms of what they can do to kind of drive themselves to the highest possible level?
Well, I'm sorry to stall on this. I think what I mentioned before about always finding the joy and enjoying it and letting yourself experiment. Don't let the failures get you down. Just learn from them. Probably I learned much more from a failed painting than a painting that's successful.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that people at your level still have failures.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. I think I've learned over the years that they're just part of it and they don't throw me like they used to.
Right.
I try to see what can I learn from this. But, I mean, now there may be people that don't have them, but I have them.
So do you muscle through, or do you sometimes just scrape down and start over, or just quit? What's that look like for you?
I'll scrape down, or I'll muscle through, or I'll just quit. I think it could be any of those.
Yeah.
Given circumstances, and I think all of those are fine responses.
Absolutely. Well, I think that one of the great lessons is learning not to be so invested in what you're doing that you continue down the wrong path.
Oh, that's so true. That's true in life and in painting.
Certainly is. Well, Dawn, this has been an absolute pleasure. I am so honored to have you on the podcast and so honored to know you. You just are such an incredible inspiration, and you have done so much for the painting community as a whole, not only just around Tennessee, but nationally. You're involved in the Portrait Society, and you've given a lot of guidance and direction to folks there, and really been an inspiration, and you truly are a giving person, and I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and like I say, I do appreciate being a part of this. I've enjoyed so many of the podcasts. They've been wonderful to listen to, and thank you for doing them.
Oh, we love doing them. Well, thank you for being a part of it.
Okay.
Thank you again to Don Whitelaw. Are you ready for some marketing ideas now?
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhodes, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
Well, in the Marketing Minute, I try to answer your marketing questions, which you can always email me, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Always looking for questions. Here's one from Susan Estill. It doesn't say where Susan is from. She says, is there a place to find all the 3 types of plein air competitions: invitationals, juried, open, etc. Well, we do an annual issue in Plein Air Magazine. If you're a subscriber to Plein Air Magazine, you're going to get this. There's an annual issue which talks about all the shows, all the events. It doesn't so much talk about art competitions that you can enter, but all the other things that you can enter. And so that's a good thing. The other part of her question is, how does entering a competition help in marketing yourself or your art? Well, it helps in a couple of ways. First off, if you're in a competition like a plein air event competition, then you're winning awards, you're getting attention, they're promoting the names of the artist, it's helping your career. People are going to see you, they're going to see how you work, how you respond, and they're going to get to know you a little bit. If you're talking about the kind of competitions like online competitions, like the plein air salon competition, it helps you because it gives you something to talk about, something for your resume that you won in a category or you won the overall competition. This is the kind of thing that helps in your branding. Remember, branding is a lifetime commitment. You're always looking for shows you can talk about, events you can talk about, things that you've done where you've been successful, and that's where these competitions will help you. And then you can, of course, milk it by putting it out there and talking about it to your collectors, your newsletter, and all those other things. Here's another question from Maria Palvo Hansel. Again, it doesn't say where. She says, how important is a degree or a formal art education in the art industry today? Well, I probably will make some people mad by saying this. If you want to teach, in certain institutions, college, maybe even high school, a master's of fine art is very important. And a lot of colleges require a master's of fine art, but you got to get it from the right school. Like, I had a neighbor who has an MFA, but she can't draw to save her life because they didn't have any drawing programs. That she ended up doing collage. So she ended up having to study with someone after college to learn how to draw and learn how to paint. So it depends on the college, but if you want to teach, you got to have an MFA, probably, at least, especially in college level. If it's about, do you need a degree to sell art or for collectors to take you seriously? I don't think so. I mean, it's nice. It's going to make you, in theory, if you get a good degree, you get a good education, it's going to make you a better artist. So that's going to help you. But from a marketing standpoint, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. What they care about is the quality of your art. I hope this is helpful. Well, a reminder to get your tickets to the Plein Air Convention. I wouldn't wait because 75% sold out already. I think you probably want to get that pretty quickly. Also, to check out the Publishers Invitational coming up real soon, like June 8th, and the Figurative Art Convention in November in Williamsburg, Virginia. That's the FACE conference. So check those out. Also, if you've not seen my blog where I talk about life, art, and miscellaneous stuff, it's called Sunday Coffee. It comes out on what day? That's right, Sundays. You can find it and sign up for free, coffeewitheric.com. Well, this is always fun. We'll do it again sometime like next week, and I will see you then, God willing. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. And remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
This has been the Plein Air Podcast with PleinAir Magazine's Eric Rhodes. You can help spread the word about plein air painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 plein air painting tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.